When you're using an e-file bit on your nails, is it necessary to spend a lot of money? Let's test out a cheap one versus an expensive one. What's up, nail crew? It's Nicole, your fellow nail obsessed DIYer. I am testing two of my favorite bits today. The one is my tried and true, been using it for years, Pana barrel bit, and it's in the safety carbide, and I'm using it in the coarse grit. And then I'm also going to be using a more expensive bit. This one is from Erica's ATA. It is a more expensive professional quality bit, and I wanted to see what the difference was using it to e-file off one hand with one and then one hand with the other. So I'm going to start with the Erica's ATA one. It's a safety carbide bit as well. I got this one in medium. This is the bit that she recommends to remove product. And this isn't my first time I've tried it, but I haven't done it where I went like bit against bit to really see right one hand after the other to see what kind of difference it makes. So anytime that I'm using my e-file, I like to run it at about 22 to 26,000 RPMs. I've been running it a little bit higher. I typically did run it like 20 to 25 and I'd maybe stay around 20, but I've been trying to crank it up even a little bit more to more like 25,000 just so that the dip is really flying off. And this is something that you guys have asked me about a lot. How do I remove my dip products so fast, remove my builder gel so fast? This is how. I do not soak. I haven't soaked my nails off in like 4.5 years in acetone. And then I actually became allergic to acetone a couple years ago. So now I'm really glad that I had taught myself how to e-file. So when you're using an e-file, using a safety bit is definitely great, especially if you're new. And even if you're like me and you've been using one for 4.5 years, it is so nice to be using a safety bit because if your hand slips, anything like that, then you are protecting your skin a lot more. I am a very clumsy person, pretty much like with everything I touch. So using a safety bit is a non-negotiable for me when I'm removing the bulk of my product. And I use these safety carbide bits to remove dip powder and remove the bulk of my builder gel. I'm going to talk about a bunch of different tips and tricks for using an e-file, and then I'll talk about which one I think is better, and I'll even show you how to prep with an e-file as well. So when you're using an e-file to remove product, you want to keep the bit moving. It should be moving, and it should be moving pretty quickly. You can see that I am moving the e-file constantly, and every time that I go down a stroke, I pull the bit up. So you don't want to keep like rubbing the e-file bit back and forth. Every time you do a stroke downwards, you want to lift that e-file up quickly and then put it back to the top of your nail. Now, I have seen people file in the opposite direction. They file away from their skin. And while I totally understand why some people do that, obviously, like if you're doing somebody else's hands, you're filing away from their skin. But when I try to file away from my hand, when I'm doing my own e-filing, it literally takes me double the time at least. I have to file towards my cuticle area, which is another one of the reasons why using a safety bit is super important to me, because even when it kind of gets stuck on some of the really chunky glitters that I have, it's okay because it's that safety bit and I'm not cutting myself up. Now, I know it sounds really scary to be using your nail drill bit at a high speed, but I promise you it is so much easier to get the dip off, or your builder gel or your poly gel, your acrylic, if you're using it at a high speed. When you're using it at a low speed, you have to press down a lot harder, or it takes you way more time. So you never want to be pressing the bit down hard into your nail, into the product. You want to be moving it quickly, and you want to be barely skimming the surface. Now, what you'll see me do a couple times is the e-file kind of like jumps and hits the front of my finger. I have not used an e-file consistently in a while just because I haven't been doing my nails as much. I was sick and I had a pinched nerve, so I haven't done my nails much in 2025 and it's already February. So my e-file skills got a little bit rusty, that I pretty much on every finger you'll see on my right hand, you'll see me kind of bump my hand and you'll see the e-file skip. And it was my left arm that I actually pinched a nerve in. And so I'm just just like getting my strength back in my left hand that I can actually grip things. So I am a little bit awkward with it. On my right hand, I'm now using the Panabit, and this is one you can get off Amazon. It is like, I think about 1/3 of the price of the Erica's ATA one. Now, one thing that you'll notice right off the bat that I noticed is the product comes off really nicely with both. You can see it coming right off. But if you watch how I'm moving with my left hand, e-filing on my right hand using the cheaper Panabit, it takes a little bit longer. Now, I also did on my left hand have to e-file chunky glitter off, so that does add a little bit more time. But just on the solid nails, it came off a little bit slower. So definitely if you're somebody who's looking for speed, I can understand why you would want the more expensive bit, because it did get the product off quicker on my left hand, minus the chunky glitter, which either way, when you're e-filing off chunky glitter, it takes a little bit longer. And when you're filing off glitter in general, it takes a little longer. So what I like to do when I'm e-filing my dip powder off and when I'm e-filing off builder gel or rubber base, I like to go in downward strokes towards my cuticle, and I like to move across my nail. So I typically start with one side of my nail, whichever one feels comfortable, whether you're holding the e-file in your left hand or your right hand. I go down my nail to start getting it off, and I do that a couple times back and forth, and every single time, like I said, I am lifting the drill bit up. Now there you go, seeing me again having it slip and like catch my finger. My left hand is just not quite there yet with getting its strength back after my pinched nerve. And then once I do that downward motion to get a decent amount of the bulk off, then I go towards the tips of my nails and like file across, because when my nails are short and square like this, I do tend to be a little bit too rough at the edges of my nail. So rather than trying to really go down my entire nail, I like to just go through the main part of the bulk and then go across my nail. If you ever feel heat on your e-file, immediately pull it off your hand. That's how you know you're pressing too hard, or you might be using the wrong bit, but either way, it's a no-go. Like, heat equals bad. So if you feel the heat, I'd say move your feet because that rhymes, but no, move your hands. Move that e-file bit off your hands and do not keep pressing down. So anytime people talk about the rings of fire, that means that they felt way too much heat and their e-file was being pressed down into their natural nail too much. And even with all these layers under, you can still damage your nails if you're pressing it in one spot too long and too hard. So keeping the e-file moving is huge in using it properly. No matter what kind of product you're using, just skimming the surface is what you want to be doing. So anytime that you're pressing your e-file down into your hand too hard, into your nail too hard, that's when you're risking damaging your natural nails, even with the builder gel on like I have underneath. So I keep like going, and I flipped my hand back a couple times just to see if like I could feel how it felt to get the e-file pulling the product off towards me, and I just did not feel as comfortable with it that way. It just did not come off as well for me. So that's something else to think about if you're struggling with the e-file and you're doing your own nails. Now, since I wasn't doing a fill of my builder gel and all I was doing was going in and going to just buff my builder gel a little bit smoother again so that I could do a new mani over top of it, because I use peel base in between my builder gel and my dip manis, I took a buffing block and went over all of the builder gel so it would smooth back out. If you're not putting peel base down in between, you don't have to do this smoothing part. If you get really good at using an e-file as well, you wouldn't need to do this. If your e-filing gets to the point where like you are getting the product off so nice and even, then you wouldn't need to do any like buffing or anything to smooth it. Typically, if I was going right back in and doing a builder gel fill, this is where I would switch to a sanding band right away. But since I was not going to be doing a fill of my builder gel, since my nails are so short, I don't have to do fills as often. So all I had to do was file it smooth again, so my peel base would have a smooth surface to work with. And if you're somebody who likes to use peel base sometimes in between, using one of those buffing blocks is great because you can just smooth your builder gel down really nice, and then you can, once you clean it and finish your nail prep, it'll be ready for a new peel base application, new dip mani. I always go through with my hand file and make sure that my shaping is fixed up. Whenever I'm e-filing off product, your shape can tend to get a little bit messed up, so I like to do my filing right then and there before I go in and finish with any of my nail prep, which I'm going to be doing next. When you're fixing up any of your shape that got off, just be careful. Like, you should still be being very gentle to your nails as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is go around my cuticles and make sure that I don't have any product stuck down there. And I'm using one of the other Erica's ATA bits. It's absolutely fantastic. It's her small tapered diamond bit, and the difference between the diamond bits and the carbide bits is the type of material. And the nice thing about the diamond bits is you can actually use that to clean your cuticles. So I was using this small tapered diamond bit to get off any dip that was stuck in the side walls and at my cuticle area, and I was using it to clean up my cuticles as well, to get any of the cuticle that was stuck on my nail plate, to get that up. When I'm doing my cuticle prep, I do not go way back into my cuticles. I just get any of the skin that's stuck there on the nail plate. And you can even use the side of the diamond bit to get any kind of excess skin that's stuck on the sides of your fingers, which is amazing to give it more of that polished look. Now my nail prep is all done and I am ready for my builder gel overlay. And if you're still struggling with builder gel overlays on your natural nails, don't worry, I got you. Click on this next video and I will teach you how. Thanks for joining me today, nail crew.